Well, again, thank you guys. I really appreciate you joining me today. Just an introduction. My name is Shannon Irie. I am a research project manager in the Department of Atmospheric Science. And the Department of Atmospheric Science, whether this makes sense or not, is in the College of Engineering. Many other universities it's not, but in our department, we are located in the department or in the College of Engineering. I appreciate you joining me here today because I do know that I'm going against Tulise Daly, who's doing a class or doing a cohort here about allowability. So I do appreciate that you guys wanted to join me here today. So I really would like this to be interactive so that we can have a conversation about this. And so the very first thing that, and you'll notice is that from the title page is that it was a department research administrator's tale. And what we're going to specifically talk about for us is that our department does research management in a mechanism that is often referred to as cradle to grave. And it's a financial management model that begins in pre-award and continues through post-award and ends at closeout. And actually that ends at closeout is probably not completely correct because as we all found out during the NSF audit several years ago, that a lot of us were having to pull some information out about projects that we had managed maybe years ago. So the management of our research projects doesn't end necessarily at closeout. It would end past any conceivable audit time period. How about that? So, but this is the management that we still employ at the Department of Atmospheric Science. A lot of departments, a lot of colleges have gone to a very different model, particularly in the past several years. A lot of people have gone to either having post-award, pre-award, and post-award separate and having people who are in those areas, but our department still has the cradle to the grave. So I would like to talk a little bit about some of the benefits and some of the problems that can come from this type of management. A lot of these things, though, I want to make sure that everyone understands that none of this is unique to the Department of Atmospheric Science. So everything that we're going to talk about may be a little bit unique to research administration, but definitely it doesn't even necessarily, it's not unique to just being in a department, because these can all be for centralized units, etc. Some of the problems that were, some of the benefits and problems that I'll talk to about some of these things. So my first slide that I am presenting is about the benefits, and obviously I'm biased. We think that this is a great way to manage ourselves, and so you're going to see this is going to look heavily biased, but I would like to have a conversation. If people have comments, questions, please feel free to ask. So some of the benefits that we see to this mechanism of research management is that we believe that in pre-award, and you'll see this a lot in the presentation. I'm going to go from pre-award to post-award, but a lot of things we have some common benefits or problems with each of these areas. So we believe that we have increased knowledge of support for the PI and the groups that we support. You can be prepared for upcoming solicitations to regular sponsors because you have these knowledge from post-award management that you have, that a lot of our stuff comes in at regular increments. And so when you're getting to the end of a post-award or an end of an award, we know that that next round of solicitations are going to be coming out. So we can plan for those. We kind of know the regular timeframes that these come in. We also believe that we have an awareness of our PI group's upcoming changes that can help with budgeting. And that's budgeting at the pre-award stage. So because we know what's going on in post-award, because we know whether or not there are any salary issues, hiring that needs to go on, student time that still needs to be covered, or students that are going on from a master's to a PhD program. So a lot of times this helps us when we go to budget in the pre-award area. So, and then conversely in the post-award, knowledge that a proposal has been submitted and an award could be pending. It's helpful for fiscal year salary distributions. It's very helpful for us to know there might be something coming down the pipeline. There might be extra coverage for people. So, you know, sometimes we know we don't have to panic about something. We might know that we have a good shot at some of the awards that are coming through. But it does help us to then have good conversations with our PIs about how we're going to cover salary for some people who might look like they don't have any salary support. It also helps us to know what kind of hiring we're going to need to do in the near future. Postdocs, students, especially when it comes to student recruitment time for us, which is generally at the beginning of the calendar year. So right now, our department is going through a lot of recruitment for getting students into our program. Knowing what we have put in pre-award and what is, we can have better conversations with our PIs about that, and we can give them better guidance. And also, it also helps with subaward management. We know whether we put a subaward on those things, and so when we get an award, we're not caught unaware that we're going to have to put in the paperwork with sponsored programs, and we're going to have to be aware of that subaward and needing to get all that set up. And this is just pure my opinion, but I really believe that because we have also helped in the budgeting, those of us who are in post-award have helped prepare the budget. We've have the knowledge of the budget. A lot of times we'll have a lot less rebudgeting between categories. Really not always a big deal, because with a lot of our awards we have rebudgeting authority, so it's not that big of a deal. But we also do deal with some contracts, and a lot of those contracts a lot of times are much tighter in what they allow to be rebudgeted, or if they allow rebudgeting at all. So that's also helpful to us. So before I go on to comment, I wanted to also mention that helping me with this PowerPoint today, because when I'm going through here, I'm recognizing things that we discussed, that also joining us on this meeting today is I have several people from my department. I believe that I've got Jared, who is here. Jared Pelton, he's one of our research project managers. I also have Samantha Reynolds, who's also one of our research project managers. And I believe Darby was going to be on the call, Darby Neighbors. She's our department business DBO. What does the O stand for, guys? I don't remember anymore. Department business. I've been away from the office too long now. I can't remember everyone's stuff, but she's our boss. So they're also on the call with me, and they've helped me with these slides. As far as we went through all these and kind of talked out what we really believed were some of the benefits and later on problems with this method. So let's go on to the common things about benefits. Budgeting and financial management is easier with knowledge of a sponsor's pre-award and post-award idiosyncrasies. A good example of this one is that we have a sponsor that we used to put in a lot of proposals with, but it was Joint Fire Science. And Joint Fire Science wouldn't allow for tuition to be charged for students. And I know that there are several other sponsors who have this, but not having known that in post-award from having put it in pre-award, it would have been a real struggle to then understand how we're going to pay tuition for students and not be prepared for that. But because I knew that in pre-award, and when we found out we were getting the award, you know, you have generally a time period when you find out you're going to be awarded that we could make a plan for that. And so by the time the award came and we had students working on there, it wasn't a big deal. Another benefit that we believe we have is that we can learn from our mistakes. And believe me, we've made mistakes. One of the examples, and this one was from Sam, is that we have often put things that we deem to be equipment in our pre-award budget, but when we got into post-award, it wasn't equipment. For instance, we buy a lot of these servers and disk arrays, and depending on how those go through and what it is that we end up getting in post-award, some of those aren't always going to be equipment, even though they're over $5,000. They, go through property management, and Deb Ellison gives us the thumbs down. No, this isn't equipment. We also believe that this model provides better customer service to our PIs and groups. Just due to our expanded role with our groups. We're one-stop shopping for our PIs and for our faculty and for the students. We end up developing really strong relationships with our groups. We actually become a part of them. We're invited to their, when students are graduating, we're invited to the Christmas parties or the holiday parties. So we have a really good relationship with our PIs. So does anyone have any comments, any thoughts, anything you want to share? So let's move on. So we talked about the benefits, but obviously with this model of financial management, there are some problems. It's not a great fit for everybody. And my pre-award problem and my post-award problem are basically the same. But when you have to deal with both pre-award and post-award, pre-award is always going to come first. We have hard deadlines. You know that, I know that. Pre-award deadlines aren't something that we can put off. In post-award, we have very few drop dead dates. And so post-award always gets put on the back burner when we have a heavy proposal time. And that's a problem. I mean, we can get really behind if things get really, really bogged down and really busy in any one of our areas. It can become a problem. You can have a month, a week, a year where you're just constantly not feeling like you're ever getting caught up on anything. I realize this is an award, or this is a problem in any sort of research administration. The administrative burden has been high for all of us, and I recognize that. It just sometimes feels when you're doing both pre and post award that you're not getting those breaks. So another thing, so let's go through the common issues that we kind of picked out, and it's, one person is handling, how we manage it in our department at least, is that we each handle specific faculty members. And so one person is handling all of a PI and a group activity. So that means that we have less overlap and less cross-training with each other. And this can become a problem, obviously, when we want to go on vacation, we want to be gone for a week. And just because everybody in the department, or all these groups are in the same department, and I'm going down to point 3 here, that all the groups are different, even in the same department. So it doesn't mean that with this cross-training that we're going to know what the other groups are doing. They might have different sponsors that they all put proposals into. They may have different mixes of students, etc. So it can be really hard when people are gone. And it also makes it difficult when you're on vacation, and I have a horrible, horrible habit of checking my email way too much. Each person, because of this, can handle fewer groups and PIs and groups, which means that we need more people to do this. When you're doing both pre and post award, you reach an area where you completely just max out, and there's just no more that you can do. And not only that, but you have to staff for kind of the heaviest time periods rather than in pre-award and post-award you can kind of your ups and downs better. It's harder to figure that out when you're doing the cradle to grave model. The other thing is that it's been suggested that with cradle to grave that we're not specialized in either pre or post-award. I appreciate that as a thought process, but I'm gonna throw it out there that it actually creates more of a problem for us because we have to be specialized in both pre and post award. It's not fair to our faculty, to our groups, etc., if we're not specialized in those areas. So again, it's more of a burden on the employee, but I do realize that there are probably areas where we, we could bone up on both of these areas. So we also have less experience with certain sponsors within the same department. So for instance, and not just certain sponsors, sometimes it's certain programs. So for instance, Sam in our office has dealt with a lot more cost share than the rest of us. Cost share is just not something that my groups do very often. Jared and his groups, he has a lot of participant support and RU program experience. Again, not something that my groups generally do. But then again, my groups, I have a lot more fixed price contracts in general, and things of that nature, which, the guys in my office also don't have. That makes it also difficult for us to do this overlap and cross training. The other thing that can be a problem is that anyone coming into our department and into this position has a much longer learning curve. We sometimes talk about the fact that it takes an entire cycle, sometimes more than a year, so that you will have seen pretty much everything before going back to it again, before you can actually consider yourself to be trained. But I would even suggest it's longer than that, because a lot of our cycles and a lot of the things that we touch aren't necessarily on a yearly basis. Sometimes they're every 2 years or every 3 years. And these things are difficult. So you touch them once and then you don't see it again for a couple of years. So again, I think research administration in general, though, has a long learning curve. And all of us should give ourselves a break, one, that we can't know everything immediately, but also, give ourselves a hand for how much we have learned and how far we've gotten. Okay, then I'm going to pick on Sam really quickly. Sam, can you turn on your microphone? I don't know if you can talk, or can you get into the.
Yep.
Are you there? Okay. So anything else? Anything you want to add to with either what I presented with the benefits?
Well, I think just one thing that I was thinking about when you say that we're the one-stop shop.
Mm-hmm.
Not only are we like the liaison between, our PI and sponsored programs, but there have been many times where we've been the liaison with procurement or with shipping, and we kind of help coordinate all sorts of stuff to make sure that projects happen or field campaigns happen. I don't know, it can be a lot to take on all at once, but it's also kind of exciting to be so ingrained in the process.
Right. Well, so the one thing I'll mention that Sam reminded me of this is that, Jordan, thank you. I see in the chat that she's talking about that she does mainly pre-award, but she does have 2 PIs that she manages post-award duties for. So I'm sure that some of this is resonating with you, I'm hoping, Jordan. So if not, let me know if you have other experiences, or please chime in. But one thing I did want to mention is also problems with Cradle to Grave when you are the one-stop shop, as Sam mentioned, with our PIs, is that not only are we doing research, but we're also doing 16 accounts, we're doing 6.4 accounts, 22s, 21s, startup accounts, which can be either 13s or 16s. So we're managing that whole experience, so it's not always just research, but that adds an extra burden onto this as well. So when you're tied to just that one faculty member. So, okay, thanks. I'm just going to kind of start introducing our department a little bit, just because I think that I want to tie in why we do this. I'm going to do just a little ATS quiz time here, but first of all, we had a comment from Darby. Yes, Darby's talking about how collaborative we are and how we discuss things all the time, and very supportive. And I will be mentioning that later here in the slides. So this quiz is not interactive, guys. It's going to answer for, but it's mainly just so that we can introduce the department a little bit. Okay, Sandy. You also do Cradle to Grave. Great. So Sandy, I don't know if you have the ability to turn on your microphone. Is any of this resonating with you?
It is very much, yes. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah,
Yes.
it does. I feel there's a lot of benefits in that when we're working on the pre-award side and knowing the intricacies and what we are including in the budget and why, it has helped on the post-award side when implementing the projects and knowing what we're in for and how long of a timeline we're going to need to procure equipment and things like that has been very helpful for us.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. But I'm hoping also just the problems that I suggested. I mean, it's not all a panacea. I'm not suggesting that this is even a great method for everybody, but you know, but great. I really appreciate your comments.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Shannon. This is Beth.
Hello, Beth.
Sorry to just jump in here.
No, please do. That's what makes these fun. I don't want to hear myself talking all the entire time.
Well, as you know, of course, CIRA used to be split into pre and post award. Different people handling that. But over the last 5 years, we have transitioned to the cradle to grave model. It was a learning curve. Some people have left. It wasn't a comfortable position for them, but most people, I think, really enjoy it, the split. For one thing, I think the cycles and proposals versus doing the post-award kind of evens out your workload a lot, and especially for CIRA, because other people don't know this, but we have probably 80% of our proposals go in the spring because we're funded mostly by NOAA. And so we had one pre-award person and then a halftime person, and they were just slammed for 2 months. But then when we split it up, all that proposal time has been split up among people, and I think it's working really well, and I think our PIs like it too. And it's worked for our group especially. So,
well, considering you guys are our neighbors, we share some of the same problems and issues with where we're at. So, great. Thanks, Beth.
Thanks.
So, I'm just going to introduce ATS just a little bit via a quiz. So let's, my Jeopardy music went away. Didn't have that timed as well as I should have. So the first quiz that I had is how many RPMs are Department Research Administrators does ATS have? And we have 3.5. So that half comes in the form of Sharon, who is shared with CIRA, and Beth, who was just on the call here, is with CIRA, and so that's where our half person comes from. So otherwise it's me, Sam, Jared, and Sharon, splitting it up. Just as so you can kind of look at kind of volume of what ATS does. Last year we submitted 110 KR actions, and when I say KR actions, I put it that way on purpose because not all of those were full proposals. As all of you probably are aware, we do lots of revisions and supplements and updates, etc. So that was just how many times our RPMs went in and put in a KR action. We have 24 faculty members. That 24 number includes some emeritus faculty that are still active. We have 19 not emeritus professors at the moment, or faculty members, and those are split up between the 3.5 of us. And the last one's just a funny, and who knows, maybe someday we will, but UFOs are one of the topics that atmospheric science currently does not have a research award on, or a proposal that I'm aware of that has gone in. Maybe they have. So ATS, and one of the main reasons that I wanted to put this in is because I'm not here today to suggest that everyone needs to go to the cradle to grave method. There's a lot of hybrid, and then, like I said, there's a lot of people doing all pre-award and all post-award, and every department, every college, every centralized area has had their reasons for going to those things. I just wanted to kind of suggest to you why this works for us. And one of the main things is that ATS generally has a higher than average funding success. The main division of geosciences that we submit most of our NSF proposals to typically has a 46% rate of, we have a 46% rate of getting those proposals, which generally means that we have fewer proposals that we have to submit yearly. And someone, I saw that Andy Reynolds is on the line. I don't know, maybe I can pick his brain, but I believe the typical NSF success rate is closer to the somewhere between 20 and 25%. So,
hi Shannon, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I'm fairly certain it's in that range you just mentioned.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Thanks, Andy.
Sure.
So our funding success is generally higher than typical, and also that means that we have fewer proposals that we submit yearly. I'm gonna just have you look at that asterisk that I have there, because this is gonna come into play later in my PowerPoint. But just remember that. But one of the biggest reasons why we have this management style is because our PIs want it that way. Our faculty members have decided that this is how they want this to go. They want, and they're willing to pay for the service. Our faculty generally gets a good portion of the indirect costs returned to them, and they have given up a portion of that in order to make sure that they have us in their lives. They like the one-stop shopping, and this is important to them. So that's probably the number one reason why we have this as our model. Historically, it was more difficult because we are on the Foothills campus. It was harder for us to use centralized services. I'm going to say, considering the pandemic and the fact that we're all working from home, this no longer seems like a real valid argument. But historically, it was something that was always wanted for everyone. And for that reason, we also have a department, HR, and a travel purchasing personnel as well that are all in our department. So we handle all those mechanisms in-house. It also works for us because we have a smaller number of faculty in our department, and we're a graduate-only program. We don't have any undergraduate students. So that also makes this easier for us. But just due to the kind of projects that we a lot of times have large dollar amounts. We have a lot of field campaigns, and there's a lot of collaboration with other universities, with other departments, with foreign organizations, etc. It makes this easier to be able to keep the pre and the post together for those reasons. So I wanted to go into a little bit about tools that we use for keeping us all sane, so to speak. And earlier in the chat, I actually put a PDF of this whole presentation in there because I do realize, especially those of you who are looking at this on a laptop, that this is really small. So we can go, and we're not going to go through all of this. I'm not going to read this line for line, but I just wanted to say that one of the really key things for us is that we try to define our roles, and we try to define who does what. I would say that historically, when we used to we came from historically a coordinator system, and basically every faculty had their own administrative person, and that person did everything for the faculty. Well, now that we have gone to a more centralized, and there's only 3.5 of us doing all this, we really have to put out what it is that we can accomplish, and so that we'll be successful. I do know that Sponsored Programs recently put out something similar about the things that they were going to be able to do for people, and this is in the same lines. And I'm just going to do a couple of lines in both pre and post award, just and apologize, I've got my big screen over here, and that's what I'm going to be reading from, because I also on my laptop can't see this. So, just for instance, in pre-award, budgeting and budget justification, those are things that we do together. We do those together with our PIs. There's no way that we can, I mean, maybe after a while I could do a budget for one of my faculty members and adjust a pretty good justification, but we're always going to need input from them, and we're going to need to work on these things together. But one of the things that we always request for our PIs and our faculty members to do is that if they have questions with either a program manager, with somebody that they're working with, etc., that they're the ones who are the pivot person on that, and they always have to make those initial emails. It doesn't mean that we don't jump in and answer questions or help out with some of that, but a lot of times I know that faculty a lot of times will be like, well, we need to figure that out at NSF. And it's like, well, yes, you do. You need to contact your program manager and ask them these questions. They don't want to hear from me. One of the things that we do that we don't ask our faculty members to do is that we are the point person to be the liaison between any other department and also sponsor programs. Generally, I'm going to say, and I don't have any of our teams, which we, by the way, we deal mostly with Team 3 in sponsored programs, and then also Team 1 when we submit via CIRA and the cooperative agreement with NOAA. Generally, our people in sponsored programs don't ever talk to our faculty. That's pretty much what we do. We also prepare the KR records. I do have several of my faculty and some of my research scientists who are becoming confident in doing a budget in KR, but for the most part, I generally start those. Sometimes they'll play around with them though. And, you know, a lot of times we also, for the most part in our department, we do all of the submission to the sponsor websites. So we upload the documents, etc. In post-award, you know, some of the things that we alone do is, you know, we reconcile. I'm not asking my research groups to do the reconciliation. I do that every month. We also, when the award comes in, we're checking the paperwork and making sure everything looks good. I know that all this goes to our faculty, but for the most part, they do rely on us to make sure that we're looking at those. But in post-award, one of the things that's very important to us is that when it comes to any sort of purchasing or any sort of travel and any justifications for what they're doing, that comes from our faculty. So they are the ones who are providing that information, because I don't know enough about the very intricate things that they're doing and the science that they're doing to be able to provide any of that on any consistent basis. So, and also we also require our PIs for the most part. There are a couple of holdouts from people who are not liking some of the portals that the sponsors have, but most of them are submitting their own reports as well. Again, I can't do their reporting for them. I can give them information for it, like who was paid on it and if there were any conferences or things that we went to jog their memory about some things for outcomes. But other than that, they're the ones responsible for that. Also, so tools we use, training and education, none of these are earth-shattering. All of you are using pretty much the same things. You know, we're using KR like everyone else. We're going to the sponsor portals. We're going to the RAM around, sometimes Incura items and other professional. We're attending the meetings, workshops, and conferences just like everybody else is. I will say that, and just a shout out to Darby and a thank you, is that she's been very generous in providing us funds to be able to go to even out-of-state conferences. So that's been great. You know, we do KR trainings for for PIs and research scientists and students, even if they're interested in it. Obviously, we're training our PMs. But I would say that I feel that we have a really strong collaboration with each other. And it's a collaboration not only with the RPMs, but also with our research groups. But amongst the RPMs in our department, we have a lot of shared expertise and knowledge. Again, I said that we didn't all deal with the same sponsors, but then lo and behold, someone's going to put in a proposal to a sponsor that we've never seen before. There's probably somebody in my department who's already done it, and we work together a lot. We also share templates for things like justifications. And this comes in real handy, in particular with certain sponsors like NASA, where we have to do redacted budgets and total budgets, and they have a lot of crazy submission requirements on their Rose's call. But we mentor each other. And that doesn't just mean that mentoring is one way. I mean, you can learn a lot from someone who's also just joined a department. So it goes both ways, but we try to check each other's work. We try to be consistent. We try to use some standard language, in particular in our justifications. That makes it a little bit easier. And one of the things that we also do in communication is that we have weekly RPM meetings where we get together and we discuss either, what our next week is going to look like. And these are on Monday mornings, and we discuss kind of, do we have a lot of proposals going in? But it's a place to ask questions like, hey, this happened last week, and what do you know about this? So it's really helpful. In particular, right now, it's great to have those meetings where you can talk to people and still feel part of a team. So I think we're all feeling a little bit of disconnect. So here's, again, and I realize, again, this is probably very small looking if you're on a laptop. And again, I'm not going through this. I just, this is part of what we were working on an RPM manual. And this is a pre-award checklist. And it's actually a really good tool, in particular for somebody who's new, to help them out. And it's going through the points, point by point, of what you should do, and where there's some stops, either hard stops or, hey, you need to put a form in for this, because our jobs are hard. There's a lot that goes on with, in particular, with certain sorts of proposal submissions. So we put this together because we thought that it would be easier in writing, and so that you could kind of look at it and also have a visual of, when you need to take a step back and say, oh, I need some more paperwork that needs to go with this type of submission. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Again, like I said, it's really little, but in the PDF, if you guys have any questions about it when you read through it, or if you have any suggestions for anything that we should add, that would be great. We do have an RPM manual that is sadly needing some updating, and this would be a really great addition to that. So just to throw it out there, the meme that I put on here, I'm showing my age and wondered who else knows what this is in reference to, the cartoon.
Isn't it Scooby-Doo?
Oh, thank you. Who was that?
Carrie from OSP.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
Thank you. Yes. I put this meme in there and I'm like, oh, no one's going to even have a reference to this. So yes, it is Scooby-Doo. Thank you. Okay. So in post-award, again, nothing here is earth-shattering. We're not using a lot of tools that the rest of you aren't using. I am going to just kind of reference a little bit that the Excel and the Symphony, that we create portfolios in Excel for every single one of our faculty members and their group, so that we can project the projects, all of their projects and all the salaries in their groups through the entire project. And we also have a homegrown system that was made in the College of Engineering called Symphony, that we use quite often. And in fact, I use it now to reconcile just because it's a little more friendly. I don't know if any of you guys have any reference to Symphony other than those of us in engineering. I do know a couple of other departments or colleges have gone into this, but Symphony's been a great tool for us because while it has some limitations in the fact that it only shows one fiscal year at a time and doesn't go past the current fiscal year, it is a really great resource for seeing where the PIs are at, and it creates a whole portfolio snapshot for our faculty in there as well. So that's great. The other things in pre-award, pretty much the same, as that, we collaborate. We've got the mentoring, the consistency, And the consistency here is that our aim is that every single one of our faculty member or every PI, and the reason why I'm using those separately is because we have a lot of research scientists who also submit proposals within the research groups. So every PI that we have, and we'll get the same support. And again, that communication also goes into post-award as far as our RPM meetings and us touching base with each other and talking and etc. So does anyone, okay, biology, Darby, thank you, you're gonna guess Scooby-Doo. Okay, Diane, biology also uses Symphony. How do you like it? I don't know if you have
Can you hear me? Sorry.
I can. Yeah, sorry. I'm just calling people out. I apologize.
No, that's fine. I was actually watching the Mars lander on another screen. So
Oh, did they make it?
they just touched down.
Oh, that is awesome.
But for Symphony, it's a really great user-friendly tool, and we use it for just checking up on recent purchases and encumbrances and projections. So I'm in it every day.
Yep. No, we found it really handy, and like I said, I know that Vista is the system of record that we're supposed to be using for reconciliation, but quite honestly, I found that Symphony for doing my monthly reconciliations is a lot easier. So it's really easy to drill down into it. So apologize if you guys don't know what it is. I don't think we're going to have time at the end here because we're starting to run a little late that I could show it to you. But could be something you guys could look at, that other departments could look into. So, and I just think that this can't be stressed more, that the biggest thing and the biggest tool that we use is customer service. And like Ron Burgundy says, hey, it's kind of a big deal. We stress this to everybody who is working in the department, in our department office, is that, we're here to facilitate research, and we're here to facilitate education and help both our researchers and our students alike. That's just what our jobs are. I'm proud of our department, and I think that we really give a really great service. And part of that customer service for us is this cradle to grave model. But I am going to have you notice I got a little asterisk here. So when I was putting together this presentation, I was just kind of thinking about all the things that we were talking about. And so I created a mind map. This is how I think. So I know not everybody does, but this is how I think about things. And when I was putting this together, one, it was a lot of fun. Just also looking at my job and thinking about the things that we do. But, we've pretty much covered all the things from pre-award to post-award, things in between, like award, stage, closeout. And the main things in all of these that we've talked about is communication, and how very valuable communicating with our team, communicating with our PIs, communicating with sponsored programs, communicating with other departments if you're working with them, how very valuable communication is. But the one thing I when doing this mind map that I didn't cover in the presentation is how much in our department with this cradle to grave financial management that we have is that we are also, if you can see over to the left, we're so much advisors to our faculty, to our research scientists, and a lot of times to our students who come to us when they're dealing with fellowship problems, or in our groups, a lot of times, sometimes my students come to me because they haven't been paid or something has happened, just in pointing them in the right direction. With our faculty and our researchers, it's, do we need to put in proposals? Do we have money? Do we need to hire people? A lot of times they're also just handing me things and saying, hey, what do you think? How does this look? And also, it's also in purchasing or in other things, when we have to say yes and no to things. And we hear this a lot in research administration, that our job is to get to yes. not on things that are unallowable. And, you know, we should have gone to Talise Dailies to talk about allowability. But I'm talking about the things that end up in that gray area. You know, how can we get there? How, you know, what could we do? No, we might not be able to do it this way, but maybe we could do it this way. And that advisor role is just really pivotal in the things that we do. And I think that sometimes that advisor role is the one that we don't give ourselves enough credit for. Because I want you guys all to remember all the little asterisks that I put within the slides, because, oh, I've lost my cake. COVID ruins everything. So when I first put together this, and I only have a couple more minutes here, guys, and I'd like to see if there's any questions, and people can mute themselves at any time and we can talk. But when I put this together, initially it was last February. And when I was going back through all my slides, because I wasn't going to reinvent the wheel, I noticed that there's just so many things I was talking about that have changed. And, you know, all of us are feeling this. It doesn't matter if you're in the department or if you're centralized or if you're at the college level. Doesn't matter if you do cradle to grave, you know, we're all feeling this. You know, we've had endless proposals this year. You know, when I said that we put in less proposals because we have a higher success rate, well, we've been putting in endless proposals. The administrative burden, you know, just the unknowing, the, you know, being alone, working from home. So anyways, I just wanted to put this last slide in as kind of just a visual graphic of things that have gone on in my work day and how I've been feeling about some things, and didn't know if anyone else had any other comments. So, because this is the last slide, guys. So, any comments, any questions, anything anyone wants to talk about?
Shannon, this is Diane in biology.
Hi, Diane.
So I'm the only pre-award person in biology, and then we have a post-award person. And the thing that we struggle with is how to bridge that gap between the proposal and the award so that we don't forget all the details of it. How do we keep those records? Since most of the proposals aren't going to be funded, we don't want to make a folder for every single thing and waste all that paper. But then when the time of the award comes, does the post-award person have any idea who we budgeted to pay? And was there a 1% minimum effort form signed? So
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Well, it's easier for us because we were the person who did it. And that's part of my premise, obviously.
Mhm.
But you know what? We also have a shared drive that all of the RPMs have access to. And so we have a portfolio for each and every faculty. And within that, there's something that has been submitted for that faculty. We have a, proposal file for each
Okay.
faculty. So, and we have access to those. All of us have access. So it could be something as simple as that you guys have something that's shared that all of you have access to.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
that
makes sense.
that could be helpful. Or it could be maybe when you're doing the proposal, you want to send a copy of it to that person, or ask some suggestions. Maybe you could have just a little more conversation between you about, things. I don't know. I don't know your exact circumstance, obviously, but
Yeah.
I think, again, communication can't be stressed, but we also have all these abilities now that we didn't used to have. And like I said, with these shared drives and being able to get into things together, I don't know any of the abilities of things like Google Docs or Dropbox or any of those type of things. But, maybe there's a way that you could put together something that you can all share.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So anything else? Anyone else? Well, if that's it, then I know there's more presentations that are going on next, and I don't know exactly when they start. But I really appreciate everyone coming in and people talking to me and being okay with me calling you out. Anything anyone wants to say? So if you have any questions after the fact too, please don't hesitate to let me know. And I really appreciate that y'all came to came to my presentation. Thank you.